Hi, my name's Phil and I like to talk about politics and, well, it's coming. It's finally here. The winner of the poll for today's topic at the third attempt is the Dutch Brexit monster. Now, this is really about how the Netherlands, who is one of our closest neighbours, have a lot of trade with us and so stood to lose more than most in the event of Brexit. Not quite as much as Ireland and certainly not as much as the UK, but generally speaking, more than most. However, they've moved very quickly to reduce the impact of a no-deal Brexit and actually manoeuvred themselves into a position where they could actually, depending on circumstances, come out on top as a result of Brexit. They may actually have won overall, especially if no deal is avoided. Now, as we gear up for the end game of Brexit, the Dutch government unleashed its final secret weapon, a large blue Muppet shown behind me. And just as a little aside, I have to say, whilst I was trying to find images, there are plenty of images of it, but when you're trying to find large ones in decent resolution, which proved elusive for me, when I typed in Dutch Brexit monster, what mostly came up on Google Images were Tory politicians. So read into that what you will. But anyway, this is produced by the Dutch Foreign Ministry and it's used to promote awareness of how Brexit might affect various people, in particular businesses. Companies are being encouraged to run a Brexit scan in order to find out where difficulties may lie at the end of March. It's all very reminiscent. I remember this is very much like the late 90s, isn't it, where businesses around the world were being encouraged to deal with the Y2K issue, which for those who don't know, there was a bit of an issue as computing developed in the 80s. Dates were given as two-digit numbers to do with processing power, I suppose, when we had really piss poor computers. But then as we got close to the end of the millennium, it was suddenly realised, actually, this might be a bit of a problem because it's almost like resetting the clock and it's going to cause computer systems to go doolally. So we need to fix this and make sure that it understands that it's actually a four-digit number. And it actually worked really well. Businesses got on top of it, it all worked out. We didn't have any disasters as a result of it. And it looks like the Netherlands are sort of on top of it here too. Now, I know at least one Dutch commentator on the channel when I was sort of bringing this up seemed a little bit disappointed in its blue colour. I'm not sure if they were looking for something in more of traditional orange, but I suspect that it's the blue of the EU. After all, even Leave voters in the UK want to commemorate happier times before we leave. On a poll of Leave voters in terms of what they're looking forward to the most post-Brexit, the top two things that Leave voters said that they were looking forward to once Brexit was complete was the death penalty and blue passports. So they may rant and rave a lot, but you can't deny they must have a soft spot for the EU after all. But back to the Brexit monster. Seems to be working as intended. According to the Dutch Foreign Office, the day the campaign launched, 6,832 businesses all conducted a Brexit review on their website, a tenfold increase apparently. The reason for the campaign is a fear that some businesses may not fully appreciate their part in supply chains. And I think there seems to be an awful lot of that in Britain as well. There's certainly a lot of people talking about it as, oh, we're going to be fine. But, you know, because if you're a business that doesn't import, from Holland's point of view now, if you're a business that doesn't import from or export to the UK, it might be thought of that your business will carry on as normal. However, even small independent companies in reality are part of a large and potentially complex supply chain. And, you know, if there's anyone in that supply chain who does trade with the UK at some point, then those businesses could still suffer through lost orders because another company has folded or doesn't need stuff anymore, or higher prices further along the chain. And the same, you know, same can definitely apply in Britain. And I have to confess, I'm a little bit worried about how many of these small, particularly small businesses, maybe just one person with a couple of employees, something like that, are really aware of where they are in their own supply chain. But the Netherlands have been doing more than just getting blue monsters to encourage businesses to give themselves a Brexit audit. With the UK accounting for nearly a tenth of Dutch exports, one prediction is that Brexit could cost them about 10 billion euros a year by the year 2030. Not nearly as much as how much it's going to cost the UK economy, but enough to certainly take note. So to seek opportunities, not only to reduce the damage, but also to look for gaps in the market. Isn't this supposed to be in China that there's the same word for crisis as opportunity or something like that? I don't know whether that's actually true or just an urban myth. But nonetheless, within crisis is opportunity for those looking for it. And the Dutch have been encouraging financial institutions to move across to Amsterdam. After all, service industries are especially buggered in the UK in the event of a no-deal Brexit. And those businesses may still find even remaining in the UK on a deal risky because they don't necessarily know how that deal is going to shape out. And even when they do, well, that deal could still change at any moment, really. So many of those institutions, of course, like to be based in English-speaking nations, as that's largely the language of global trade. But so Ireland is an obvious alternative, and indeed dozens of businesses financial services particularly, have moved across to Ireland already. But the Netherlands are also pretty handy when it comes to the old polylingualism. So they've been taking positive steps to encourage service companies to make the move over there as well. And it's not just independent businesses either. There are a lot of EU agencies operating in London. For example, the European Medicines Agency is now moving to the Netherlands with the creation of 900 jobs there, which of course lost from us. That alone is believed to be worth something like €1.5 billion to the economy. There's also more jobs being created for the Dutch in advertising and design as more and more companies, as I say, are relocating to Amsterdam. And they're also determined that they don't lose the skilled British workers that they already have working there. So the Mayor of Amsterdam has written guarantees of maximum protections for UK citizens working there post-Brexit, regardless of any general arrangements between the UK government and the EU. And it's not just about getting UK service companies to relocate ahead of Brexit, but existing companies will soon be more competitive due to UK businesses which compete with them at the moment suddenly becoming a lot less competitive. So Dutch companies therefore suddenly find themselves with new markets to explore. Now, it doesn't mean some companies won't suffer, of course, so I'm not sure how agriculture will fare. I know, just looking around, going to do my weekly grocery shop, there's quite a lot of our fruit and veg. It comes from the Netherlands, it's because obviously packaging all tells you where all this stuff comes from. So that's fairly obvious. Now, I'm not really sure what the issue there is going to be. Obviously, fresh food can't be held up at a border. Fresh food spoils. So, of course, there's going to be problems for the UK. That's obvious. We're simply not, if there are going to be problems at the border, we're simply not going to be able to get the same amount of food imported into the country as we used to. Doesn't mean to say the shelves are going to be bare, but some shelves will be because it depends on the food. We're certainly going to have a much smaller amount and a much smaller selection of food. Now, whether it's the case from Holland's point of view that the Dutch farmers can, sorry for using Holland and the Netherlands interchangeably here. I know it's naughty, but we do it. So whether the Dutch farmers are able to find another market, albeit at a lower price. I mean, presumably there's a reason why at the moment, they're trading a lot of that with the UK. I'm guessing it would at least be less profitable to do it elsewhere, but less profitable is better than no profits, isn't it? So whether they'd be able to do that, I'm not sure. I can't really find information on that one. So I guess it would depend on whether those markets still exist elsewhere, because that's not something they're competing with us on. We don't really export much fruit and veg, if any, from the UK. But the Dutch economy as a whole, the point is, can well be seriously countering the negatives with what it's doing. The other thing to consider is if the UK comes to a deal or avoids Brexit altogether and access to one another's markets remain open, the Dutch don't lose any of that business, but they still get to keep what they've already gained. So the Dutch economy could end up doing really well, better than anyone else, in fact, in the event that the UK either comes to a comprehensive arrangement or cancels Brexit altogether. After all, it's not like those UK businesses, or what used to be UK businesses, will just move back over. Why would they? Relocating costs money, and it's no better in London than Amsterdam for them. After all, The benefit in setting up in London in the first place is because that's where everyone else is. You join hubs. This is why tech industries really want to get into Silicon Valley in California, because it's where everyone else is. When it comes to the service industries, a lot of them like to be in London because that's where there's so many others as well. It's convenient. You've got a ready supply of skilled and experienced workers. But given that those businesses have already started scattering themselves, London starts to lose that edge. And once it's lost it, well, then there's no point in having another costly move back, is there? Because the other businesses you do business with haven't done the same unless you all collectively agree to go back. And then that's a large collective cost to everyone. So that's not very likely. So that means and even companies that haven't made the move yet but are in advanced stages of preparation for it, they may still decide it's worth doing anyway. So the concepts of governments rolling out campaigns to get businesses ready for Brexit, of course, sounds like an obvious thing to do. So you might look at what the Dutch have been doing and saying, well, okay, attracting business to move over there. It's an obvious thing to do. Having a public campaign to warn businesses to check if they're Brexit ready seems like an obvious thing to do. Yeah, it does. And then another obvious question inevitably comes, so what have the UK government done about it? Shall we have a look? So what I did is I went onto Google and I typed in how to check if my UK business is ready for Brexit. So we click on the government site here. So, the government do have a site which sort of says, okay, so you've got a business preparing, in the UK, preparing to leave the EU. So it says, use this tool to find out what your business may need to do to prepare for the UK leaving the EU, what's changing in your industry, and information on specific rules and regulations. You'll need to answer 7 simple questions to get guidance relevant to your business. Shall we have a look? Shall we pretend we've got a business? Some of you, of course, will have, but I can't hear you. So, what do your business do? We'll have a look at this. I don't know. We'll go for agriculture. We grow tomatoes, let's say. So, let's have a little look. Gordon Bennett. It was quicker than this one. I was trying it out earlier. There we go. Do you sell goods in the UK, import or do business abroad? Does business abroad include exporting and going for meetings? I'm not quite sure what this question is about. It's saying import or do business abroad, but do you sell goods in the UK? I could say, well, I sell goods in the UK, but don't do any business abroad. Let's say I imagine that I am just, a farmer that doesn't trade with Europe. I'm not aware of where I am in the supply chain. I'm just going to say no to that because that's like a weird question. So, do you employ anyone else from a European country? If I'm a farmer, I absolutely do. So we'll say yes to that. Does your business exchange personal data with another organisation in Europe? We'll say no, We'll try and be as much as possible someone that doesn't have a lot to do with Europe. Does your business use or rely on intellectual property protection? Good God, what sort of business wouldn't? So we'll say we've got copyrighted stuff, trademarks and designs. Does your business get EU or UK government funding? If it's agriculture, it will get EU funding, of course, won't it? But let's say no. Let's say, we're a brilliant farmer. We don't need it. Does your business sell to the public sector? Yeah, let's say we sell our tomatoes to a school. Civil government contracts. Right, this is what it gives us. A whole, oh my God, 68 reports to read through. That's what it does. Imagine you're a small business, like you own your own business, maybe you employ 1 or 2 people, and it comes up with this. Dear God. Farm payments if there's no Brexit deal. Let's have a quick look at this. I'm just trying to see how long this is. It's not massively long, but 68 of the buggers, and some of them may be a lot longer than this. Let's just see what they say. Delivering the deal negotiated with the EU remains the government's top priority. This has not changed. However, the government must prepare for every eventuality, blah, blah, blah. It's always been... Oh, God almighty. Explains how payments under the EU's agricultural policy schemes would be effective if the UK leaves the EU in March without a deal. As the UK will have the freedom to design its own agricultural policy once we've left the EU, the nature of support for the sector will change. The Agriculture Bill will legislate for those changes in England. The future, which hasn't happened yet, of course, the future of agricultural policy has been the subject of public consultation in each country. So let's have a look. England. Summary of responses. 147 pages. Do you know what? We're not reading that. We're not. We're not reading that. No, leave it there. But that's what the UK are doing anyway. They're getting you to answer 7 questions and then give you 100 reports to read. Because it wasn't just 68, was it? Because you click on one report, it says, right, you need to read this other report as well. And then this other one. Oh, it's really big. So as a small-time business, I mean, obviously that's agriculture. I guess there's much more in agriculture than other things. But even if there were like 20, how many small businesses have been done? And then again, you think to yourself, so, and how many of these businesses are, just because the resource potentially exists there, how many of those businesses are actually carrying it out? Are they even aware that they need to? But that probably would be a topic for another discussion. Maybe I'll put something like that on the poll for tomorrow's video. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe for further content, and click the bell notification as well. And, well, I hope you enjoyed the Brexit Monster. I love the Brexit Monster. I love a Muppet. I've got a very soft spot for a Muppet, I have to say. But anyway, until next time, I'll see you later.